Friends, Romans, countrymen, I'm here today to talk to you all about a musical which I feel, at least in terms of its music, deserves a bit more attention. Known as the Bunch and Judy. No, not Punch and Judy, although that does turn up a lot when you're searching for it. Yeah, so basically, this musical was written by Anne Caldwell and Jerome Kern in terms of the songs. I don't remember who wrote the script. That's not really relevant to this video. Now Jerome Kern is a very well-known composer from the first half of the 20th century. Anyone watching this doesn't know who he is. He did Showboat. He also did some Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers movies like Roberta, Swing Time most famously, I think. Anyway, so he did the music for this musical, and Anne Caldwell wrote the lyrics. Now, Anne Caldwell is not nearly as well known, although funnily enough, one of her last projects was in fact writing an early story treatment for what would eventually become the first Astaire Rogers film, Flying Down to Rio. Now I say funnily enough because The Bunch and Judy was also an Astaire musical. However, unlike Flying Down to Rio, that one was not successful. It was actually a huge flop. Probably part of the reason why it's so obscure. Anyway, I'm making a video about it just because, and you know, there aren't very many videos about it. I think there's only one other video about it on this site. And I really think the music from it, at least what's available from it, deserves more attention because, in fact, it's so obscure the entire score hasn't been recorded. By the way, if anyone by any chance, just to run across a copy of the libretto of this musical, please tell me in the comments because it's kind of hard to find. Anyway, but back to what I was talking about. Okay, yeah, so basically I'm just going to be giving a little background and then discussing my opinions of the available recorded songs from the musical that I've heard. So this musical was essentially, it was meant to be the Astaire siblings' big break. Yes, that's right, I said the Astaire siblings. If you didn't know, the first part of Fred Astaire's career was actually he primarily danced with his sister, Adele Astaire. They were big stars together, especially in London. In fact, the Prince of Wales himself, the one who abdicated to marry someone and later turned out to be a white supremacist, that one, he was in fact a big fan of their music. That's how big they were. Anyway, but yes, so it was supposed to be their big break, the Astaire siblings' big break. Now, like I said, it flopped, so it did not turn out to be a big break. Now, later after the Astaires became more successful, they started this tradition of first opening a show in the US, and then once it was a hit there, moving it over to England and also being a smash there and touring, areas of the UK. But obviously, like I said, The Bunch of Judy was not a success, so that did not happen. It did not go beyond America. So it started in 1922 and played into, I believe, early 1923. If anyone's curious, there are a number of surviving photos and reviews, and I might link to some of those in the description. Also, check the description for the actual audio of the song that I'm going to be discussing here. So I should probably explain what point the Astaires were at in their career when they did this. So they had grown up doing vaudeville all over the U.S. They were pretty successful doing that. And then in the late 1910s, they broke into general theater. They did some opera, like Apple Blossoms was a successful opera of theirs, but they weren't really able to establish themselves as stars initially, and obviously The Bunch and Judy contributed to that. Yes, have I made it clear that it flopped? Okay, so anyway, that's where they were at. That's where they were at the time they did The Bunch and Judy. I feel like it's worth noting here that Fred Astaire later said that one reason he preferred doing film to doing theater is that he didn't have to go to his own opening night. Well, I imagine The Bunch and Judy was probably one of the reasons why. I mean, you know, it must be 10,000 times worse to have to star in something that's unsuccessful as it's clearly being demonstrated to be unsuccessful, right? I mean, if you start a movie and that's a flop, you don't actually have to go see the movie with, you know, with a dwindling audience, right? But obviously with theater, you have to experience every single minute of that, every single minute of obvious disinterest, or not so crowded theaters, and I can't imagine that's very pleasant. I mean, indeed, in his autobiography, Astaire repeatedly describes the intense feeling of despair he felt when he was in a flop. One weird little side note here is that, so obviously as I mentioned in real life, Fred and his sibling Adele Astaire were, well, yes, brother and sister, but in The Bunch and Judy they actually play people who are basically interested in each other. They're not siblings in the musical, though. See, they were able to get away with that because this is before people publicly knew that they were siblings. It wasn't as well known then. So yeah, in fact, you can find recordings online of Fred Astaire, professing his love to his sister, obviously, in character from a different musical. It's kind of funny and weird to think about it that way. But yes, that's another aspect to it. That was something they did a lot in their early years of their career, actually. I'm just always yawning. But okay. Now, as I said, the full score of this musical has never actually been recorded, and I haven't even listened to entirely what is available because as far as I know, there's only one cast album, and it's not even available online. In full, there are only a few songs from it available online, which you can find on a blog, which I will link to below in the description. So I will go through the songs now. Pardon me while I examine my notes to make sure I haven't missed any. Alright, now first up I'm going to discuss a track which is actually a medley of two songs from the musical. Some background on that real quick. So basically the recording of it that I have available is from an album done by someone named Ben Bagley. So if you don't know who that is, he was a very in the later part of the 20th century, he was very well known among musical theater enthusiasts for doing recordings of really obscure musical theater songs and spotlighting them. In fact, before he did that, he was also known for a review of Cole Porter's songs called, I believe, The Decline and Fall of the World as Seen Through the Eyes of Cole Porter, or something like that. Anyway, but so basically that's the kind of album that this recording of the recording of the song I'm about to talk about now comes from. So this is a medley of the tracks Morning Glory and Every Day in Every Way. Now these two songs are a bit different. First of all, there's considerably less of the former song than the latter song in this recording. So Morning Glory is a pretty decent love song, I guess. It just uses a metaphor which was common at the time about clinging to someone like a vine, loving them and all that. But what I really like is the other track featured on medley, Every Day in Every Way, which is a really good, bouncy 20s Jerome Kern love song. I really recommend it if that sounds like something you'd be interested in listening to. I mean, when I first listened to it, I had a where has this been all my life kind of reaction to it. I really like it. I haven't made that clear. So then there's Hot Dog, which is the I believe the main secondary couples love song. So not Via Stairs, would not have been performed by the Stairs. This is a fairly upbeat, song about two people singing about how, I believe, about how they want to go out and have fun together, that sort of thing. I believe the title of the song comes from, I guess, an expression from the 20th century, I guess, where you say, hot dog or something if you were excited, I believe. So I guess I don't have as much to say about this one. Except that I think there's a really memorable line from it, which is, which is, if I remember correctly, I want to shake my dogs about where the thoroughbred pups hanging out. So that's an interesting metaphor there. Next up is Pale Venetian Moon. That's right. Now this track is substantially different from the other tracks I'm talking about, because the other tracks are excuse me, early 20s pop. I mean, again, people wouldn't call it pop now, but it's what would have been considered pop in the 20s. This track, though, is a deliberate stylistic throwback to operetta, which is basically lighter opera. So I think this track is really beautiful. It's got this great refrain, which is goes like what is it? It's pardon me while I sing a bit here. Okay. As my gondola glides on the blue lagoon, with the pale moon shining up above, I'll steal a kiss that is sweet as a macaroon from the red lips I love to love. Lady dear, if you're here, won't you throw a pretty rose up? Though it's late, I will wait till you put a pretty rose up. And with mandolins playing a tinkly tune, we shall sail beneath the pale Venetian moon. So that's just to give you an idea of what that track sounds like. I may have gotten a couple of the words wrong, but it's the general gist of it. So I really like that bit in the whole track. So the lyrics also, I believe, contain many references to fairy tale, and operatic cliches. Fairy tale because there are a lot of, I believe, similar storytelling devices used in fairy tales and operettas, right? I mean, opera is often described as fairy tale and unrealistic to a certain extent, at least many of them are. So yeah, okay, so I should elaborate on this a bit. So the reason why it's a stylistic throwback and not like the other songs is that The Bunch and Judy is actually a relatively early example of a musical that has a show within a show, at least for a book musical anyway. Reviews are a different story, but so this is in the musical's universe. This is a song from an operetta being performed in the musical. I guess it's an interesting similar. Macaron, yes. All right. All right. Now the last track I want to discuss here is a track which is known as "Have You Forgotten Me Blues." So in the blog post I'm going to link in the description, this is cited by the guy who wrote that blog as like the best song of the bunch, I guess, the undiscovered gem. So I guess I can agree with that. I guess I need to get out a thesaurus here because I keep using words like pretty and beautiful, but that that basically also describes this song. So I suppose that's a big part of what German Firm was known for, wasn't it? Pretty melodies, and I don't mean that in a derisive way. So this song lyrically is about what the title would indicate, right? It's these two people saying to each other about how they're worried that the person they love has forgotten them, right? Speaking of each other, I believe. So I think it's very well done and has the best opening of all the songs, I think, that I mentioned. Now, these are not all the available songs on the various albums that I mentioned. So, but in the case of the Bagley album, it's the only song that's relevant to this musical, and in the case of the other songs I mentioned, which are from a 2010 Comic Opera Guild cast album, they're not the only songs from that album, but they're the only songs from that album that I've been able to access, because like I said, the actual full album is not available online. I don't have a physical copy of it. So yes, just to summarize, it's I think there's some really good underrated music from Joan Kern, some good lyrics from Anne Caldwell, who, by the way, was something of a bit of a pioneering, pioneer in her field, considering she was a woman who was a lyricist, which is not nearly as common those days as male lyricists, at least in terms of the really famous ones. And for example, if you try to name the most notable lyricists from the early half of the 20th century, it's almost always going to be male names straight to mind, right? Like Irving Berlin, Cole Porter. They're ones that do both music and lyrics. Hart, right? Hammerstein. But two major exceptions to that are Dorothy Fields and Anne Caldwell. Yes, so thank you for watching. Good day.